Hello everyone, welcome again to our Power BI topics. We are on topic 5 now. What is DAX? So DAX stands for Data Analysis Expressions. It is a formula language used in Power BI to create custom calculations, measures, calculated columns, and tables for advanced data analysis. DAX helps you go beyond basic data summaries and allows you to perform dynamic calculations and complex data aggregation. So in a nutshell, DAX is the language used to create formulas in Power BI. That's what DAX is all about. Now let's go to our Power BI and import a data. The data we'll be using for this class will be an agric data, a farming data, a smart farming data. So as usual, this is the UI for Power BI. Just go into blank report. From there, we'll import our data. So this data again is a CSV file. That's what we'll be using. So we'll go to text/CSV and import our data there. So our data is called smart farming, and here it is, smart farming crop yield 2024. I'll be dropping this data as usual in the description below. So open up your data and wait for it to load. Our data is quite large, so you have to be very patient to wait for it to load. But in the meantime, here's our data. This is what it looks like on Excel. You view it in Excel, remember it's a CSV file. This is the extension here, .csv. So this is our data. We have farm ID, region, crop type, soil moist, soil pH, temperature, rainfall, and all that. The columns are many. The columns that are involved in this data are quite many. You even have some extra columns here. So the data is quite large, and that's why it's taking a lot of time. Be careful to be patient because the entire data has to be loaded or else to give you an error. But since it's a CSV file, don't just click on load. You have to transform the data first. So transform data here takes you straight to Power Query, where we'll clean our data and make some adjustments. So click on transform data and wait for it to load. Our data has loaded up. If you notice the bottom left of your screen, you would see 212 rows and 999 plus columns. So this is too much for us. The rows we actually need here shouldn't be up to, okay, that's the columns we need should not be up to 999. So check your data, scroll to the right and see the columns you actually need. So if you notice, our columns have stopped showing. There is no more data, but all you see is column 1, column 2, column 3. So these are unwanted data. Remember, this was a CSV file we imported, so don't be surprised that is showing. Now let's take away those columns and select the ones we need. So go to your top ribbon, you will see choose columns. Select that and pick out the columns you need. So it's coming up. Let's count how many there are that have data, that actually have data. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have about 21 columns with data. So this is the list of columns. So let's select all. Once you unselect it, it has unselected all the columns visible here. Then let's manually select the columns with data. So we've selected all the columns we need. Next up, you just press OK and it would cut out the columns you selected and shove off the rest. Our data has come up and the columns are now 22 columns. The best way to check if there are any null values is to look at the green bar at the top and you would see 0% empty. So if there are any empty values there, you would see a black portion of this green bar here. The black portion stands for empty cells. So check all the columns you see there and you won't see a single empty cell. So just look at it to the end, observe it, and also check for your data types. If your data types correspond to the data you are having there. You can see for our timestamp here, you would see a logo showing calendar. And for sensor ID, you would see ABC, which stands for text. Total days, you will see 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So I think our data is clean enough. The next thing is to close and apply this change we've made. So just click on close there and it will load up your data into Power BI. So these are our data here on the right side. Yes, on the right side of our Power BI screen, you will see just one table there having 22 fields, which is also called columns. So smart farming, but for now we'll leave this canvas view and go into the table view. Table view is also called data view. So when you go into the table view, you would see our different fields. So this is where we'll be making use of DAX. We'll be doing two things. We'll be creating new column and we'll be creating a new measure. I'll also tell you about quick measure and what it entails. So let's go back to our document here and let's talk about DAX. So you have three types of DAX. You have the calculated columns. That's three ways in which you can make use of the DAX formula or DAX calculation. You can either calculate a new column, which is adding a new field to your existing table, or you can create a measure. So measures are dynamic calculations that you use. So I would call it keywords in Power BI for calculation. Use it to aggregate your data. Aggregation simply means bringing data from different sources into one column, all having the same format, a simpler format. So this helps you for analysis. You can also use DAX to create a new table from an existing data. So those are the things you can use DAX for. Now let's observe our data and see what it really looks like. So you can know about a data or what the story a data is telling by first observing the column headers. So the column has things like rainfall, temperature, humidity, sunlight, irrigation type, even crop type here, region, and IDs of each individual farms. Then you can also see sowing date, harvest date, total days, pesticides. So this simply tells you we're dealing with smart farming, right? As the name of the table implies, smart farming crop. So it has a lot of information that you can use to bring out a story from this data. So the type of analysis we'll be doing is called temporal analysis. Temporal analysis just has to do with time. Any analysis you are doing in a range of time. So the importance of this type of analysis, especially for the sake of this data we are using, it can help you reveal seasonal patterns. You can see yields. You can determine, the temperature over the years. You can determine trends. You can identify anomalies, usually low rainfall in a specific year, for example. You can talk about forecasting when you talk about temporal analysis regarding this our data. Our data this time around is very special because it has a lot of information, so you can use it to detect a lot of things. You can also use it to support time sensitive decisions like when to sow or when to irrigate. So anytime you see the word temporal analysis, it moves along a timeline. So this data will be answering these questions for us. This is the story we're trying to tell with our data. How does yield fluctuate across different sowing and harvesting periods? So let's determine that. Then the second question is, what are the trends in environmental factors? In our data just now, you saw headings like temperature, rainfall, humidity. So we'll be determining some environmental factors over time. The last question our data will be answering for us is, what is the average growing period for different crop types and how does it impact yield? So first of all, we'll be creating some columns with this data. And in order to create columns, we'll use DAX. Remember, DAX is just data analytics expression. So the first thing to do is go to the top ribbon and click on new columns. That's how we'll start our creation of new columns. So remember, the columns we have here or the fields we have here are just 22. So we want to add a few so that we can answer those analytics questions. So when you click on add new column, you can see it has created a new column for us here, but there's nothing in it. Come to the top here and you write your column or you write your formula, you write your DAX, your data analytics expression. This place where I am now is called the formula bar. So in the formula bar is where you write your DAX. The first column we'll be creating, let's bring out the month out of this harvest date and sowing date. We want to bring out the individual months. So we'll name the new column sowing month. So let's name it sowing month. Small letters and underscore in between our words. Sowing month. So once you've given it a name, that's going to be the name of our new column. You press the equals symbol and we're ready to write DAX. So notice what I'm going to do now. Format that I'm writing now is a keyword in DAX. Format works with date, so we'll make use of it. Once you click on format, you open a normal bracket, a rounded bracket, and you select sowing date. The best way to select sowing date is by clicking on or typing out the name of your table first, and then putting a square bracket to select your sowing date. Once you start typing the name of your table, it will bring out options for you like this, showing you the different columns you have in your table. So let's look for sowing date. Here it is. Just click on it and it has selected it for you. Next thing you do is press a comma and a single, make it a double quote and make it 4 M's. Now you see the color has changed and our DAX is ready to be executed. So just either you press enter on your keyboard or you come and tick this commit sign here. Once you click on it, our column is being created. So that's how to select your fields in your data. You go by the name of your table first, then a square bracket, then your colon. So you can see our colon has been created here. Just look at the difference. It brought out all the months from our date here. So let's do the same for harvest date. Let's bring out the month. Okay. So remember, go to new column here at the top ribbon, and it will create your new column for you. We'll be using the same formula we used for our sowing month. So we're calling this one harvest month, harvest_month. Remember, when giving a name to your in DAX, you don't give space, you rather use underscore. So write the format keyword and it will bring it out as an option for you. Just press enter. Then you write the name of your table. So our table is smart farming. So you can see it has brought out all the different fields in our table. So we're looking for harvest date, because it's from harvest date that we want to bring out the month. So harvest date, here it is. Select your harvest date, press a comma, enter a double quote, and type in your month in capital letter, 4 M's. Close the double quote and close the brackets. You are good to go. So press enter and your new column will be created. Remember, we're creating these columns in order to answer our analysis question when we are designing, when we are analyzing. So we according to our analysis questions, we believe creating these columns would help. Let's go back to our analysis questions and see what we have there. How does yield fluctuate across different sowing and harvest periods? So instead of using the date for the period, we just pick out the month and see how the yields fluctuate. So we have a column here named yield. Okay, yes, yield kilogram per hectare. So these are the yields. Now we've been able to bring out the month. So we would know the yields per month during different months. What is the yield? How does it fluctuate? Remember, we're doing a temporal analysis. So next off, the second question we have, or second analytical question we have is, what are the trends in environmental factors? So we have our environmental factors as temperature, rainfall, humidity. So we have those fields, so we don't need to create them again. So it says, what are the trends in environmental factors over time per region? So in our data there, we have the region, we also have the time, which is the date. That's what we'll be using. Our third question says, what is the average growing period, which is total days, for different crop types, and how does it impact yield? So we have our total days as a column there. We have crop type, but we don't have the average. So let's go and create the average. For the average, we'll be using a measure. So in DAX, remember, I mentioned earlier that you can create new columns, you can create measures. So we'll be creating a measure here. Measures are just keywords used for calculating or aggregating your data, just as I said before. So we'll be creating a measure. This is how to create a measure. Go to your table. You can click on the arrow so all the fields goes inside. Then right click on your table and you see new measure. Click on new measure. So it's creating that for you. We'll type in the name of our measure is going to be average total days or average crop yield, because that's what the question says. The question says, what is the average growing period? So we'll name it average growing period. Average. So measure doesn't come in form of a new column. Measure is mainly used for visual. When you are creating your visual, that's when you would see the measure there. You're not going to see it as a new column. Remember, no spaces, just underscores. So after that, press your equal to. Put in your keyword called average. It's going to bring it up for you. Just press enter. So you want to calculate average what? Average days. So let's remember, always put in the table name first before the name of your field. So this is it, total days. Click on that, close your bracket, and you are good to go. Press enter. Wait for it. So it has created our new measure. You can see it to the right of your interface. Average growing period is now a measure there. You won't see it as a column, remember that. So let's talk more on DAX. Now at least you've seen me use the new column and the average. So there are more. I just used a few, but there is more to it. So let's go there. For basic DAX functions, you have the aggregate function. For example, we just used average. So you can also use sum when you want to sum up some values. You can use maximum, minimum, count, distinct count. The difference between count and distinct count is that distinct will not repeat any value that appears more than once, but count would repeat it. So you can use count or distinct count. You also have the logical functions. So you have the if, the switch. So if and switch can be used similarly. I would show an example after this explanation. So you have text functions. For text functions, concatenate can only be used on text. That's what it means. You can't use concatenate on numbers. You can use left, right. You know, when you are adding, this just has to do with text values. Upper, lower. Upper is for converting to uppercase. Lower is for converting to lowercase. And you also have some date functions. They all have their uses. So you can use the today function, the now function, the year, the month, just like that. So the way we use the format, you can instead use the month to get out the month of that particular date or on that colon. So that's that about the different functions or simple functions in DAX. So for the sake of switch that I just explained just now, let's create a new column. So I've clicked on new column and here it is. Let's use switch. Let's use switch to calculate the growing period. The growing period. So we're going to use total days. These are the days. This is the day column here. So we'll call our new column growing period. It doesn't mean you can make it capital letters, but I'm just making mine small letters. Growing period. So what do we want to do in growing period? We want to check if it is a long growing period, a short growing period, or a medium growing period because of the total days per farm. So if the total days is less than or equal to 60, it's going to be a short growing period. If the total days is less than or equal to 120, it's going to be a medium growing period. Then anything more than 120 is going to be a long growing period. So let's see how that looks like. So first things first, we'll write switch. So switch comes in a particular format. So here it is here, just click on it. It shows you expression first. Remember, switch works as a logical function. So it goes for the expression first. If the expression is true, it will check this value, whether it concords, whether it's going to give you a true, then it will drop the result. So let's look at how it looks like. Our expression is going to be the keyword true. It's also a keyword. So we're looking for this. We're looking for what is going to be true. So now it's telling us to write our expression. So after your keyword true, put a comma there, then enter your expression. You can see Power BI is giving us exactly how it looks like above here. After the expression, a comma, then the value, then a comma, then the result. So let's put in our value. Because we want to select total days as our column here, total days, you have to put that in square brackets. Square brackets, yeah, total days. So you can see it has brought it out for us. So this is the value. Then you put a comma there. So the value is going to be, before your comma, your value is a conditional statement. So you are saying if total days is less than or equal to, so put your less than there, or equal to what? 60. Then comma. What should be the result? The result should be, you have to put it in quotes since it's a text, meaning it's a short growing period. So once you are done with your result, put another comma. We want to put several expressions, or value and result. So you have value, result, value again, result. So our second value is going to be total days. If total days is less than or equal to 120, always put a comma after your value to indicate that you want to write your result now. So the result should be medium. Close quotes. You are going to put another comma, but we're not putting value 3. Looking at the switch expression here, after you are done with your values and results, the last thing that should be there should be else. So we only have 3 conditions here. Either it's less than or equal to 60, or it's less than or equal to 120, else any other thing should be large or long. Since you have short, medium, then long. Since our last value is not a table or a column name, it's just a text, so you just put your double quotes and write long. Any other thing after 60 and 120 should now be a long growing period. Close your round brackets, circular brackets, and press enter. So it's working on it. Here you have your growing period. You can see it has calculated it for us. We've just made use of the switch logical function to create a new column. So there you have it. So that's that about DAX formulas and functions. So let's go over to our report view and see these new columns we created in action, checking if they are working or functioning well. So first up, answering our first question, how does yield fluctuate across different sowing and harvesting periods? We'll be making use of the yield column and the sowing column. So let's look for the yield column. The yield column should be this one here, yield per kg. Then we'll be making use of the sowing month that we created as a new column. So click on the yield first. So it has selected a visual for us, but we want to make use of the line visual. Here it is here, line chart. So just click on the line chart and it will show up the line chart for us. So we've clicked on the yield. It has added the yield to the y-axis. So let's click on the sowing month. Let's use sowing. You know, we created sowing month and harvest month. But let's see how the sowing month one looks like. So this is our sowing month. Next up, the question also says, how does yield fluctuate across different sowing and harvesting periods? So this is how it looks like. You have to enlarge your visual, your chart, so you can see it clearly. Next up, let's check on the crop type. Okay, we don't need crop type because it says along different periods. So we should check on the region. So this is how it looks like on the sowing month. You have the yield here. It has summed it up for us on the y-axis. You have the sowing months. The sowing months are only March, February, and January. Then the regions, you have central. The regions have been painted with different colors. That's why our chart is having different colors. If we take away the region, you can see Power BI has added region to the legend. Take away the region and put in the crop type, and you would also see the difference. So let's select our crop type. It has also added it to the legend. So you can see, if you stay on the chart, on the first point on our line chart, it gives you a detail of each crop, how the different products changes over time. So in March, you have our maize as the highest value. You can see maize is reading 165,000 yields. So that's the yield you have in March. Then when you go to February, our maize also has the highest yield. If you go to January, now maize has the lowest yield. So this is how our chart looks like. Let's change the x-axis, sowing month. Let's change it to harvest month and see the difference. So uncheck this sowing month and go to harvest month and check it. So now you can see You see that it's better we converted it to months. If we had just put the date, the time will be so clustered, but months has streamlined our visual for us, or our results, into specific timelines. So you have it in June. You can see each of our crop type and their yields per month. So this is the harvest month. You can see in May, once you hover over May, it gives you the different yields. So you can use this to bring about a story in your data, and just like that you have it. So that's that about our first question. Let's leave it as harvest month. Going to our next question. Our next question says, what are the trends in environmental factors? This is the question here. What are the trends in environmental factors? The environmental factors we have are temperature, rainfall, humidity. So it's asking you the different trends over time per region. So we're going to make use of these three environmental factors. We'll make use of the region also. Back to Power BI. Let's click outside this chart so that it will tell Power BI that you want to create a new chart. So once I click outside, remember the question regards sun, temperature, humidity, and rainfall. So, and it tells us the period over time. So we're going to use the timestamp, not the sowing time, or like the sowing date or the harvesting date, but the timestamp, because we're dealing with over time. So before you click your time, you can see it gave us the table visual, but we don't want the table visual. Let's select the multiple line chart to change that to multiple line chart. So move your chart above just to give it a better view. So now you can click on your timestamp. So this is our timestamp in the x-axis. Next up, we want the humidity, temperature, and rainfall, all of them to be in our y-axis. So you can see all I'm doing is clicking the checkbox, and Power BI is adding it to my y-axis because it understands. Rainfall, and there you have it. Then the question also talks about region. So we'll select our region, and it's going to add it to the legend, or sorry, the small multiples. So this is the reason. This is what we can tell now with this visual. Looking at this, you see all the regions: Central USA, East Africa, North India, South India, and South USA. When you hover over the line here, you can see our temperatures value in this particular region. As for the timestamp, timestamp shows us that this harvest or this farming happened only within a year, which was 2024. So it's showing us in different regions what the production or the environmental factor was like. So you can tell a story with this data, looking at the trends in all the regions. You can see that they are sort of similar. The temperature season is the highest. As for the humidity, that one is in percentage. But then the rainfall gave the lowest value. So you can use this to tell a story as an analyst to your stakeholders. So let's answer the last question in our analysis. It says, what is the average growing period, total days for different crop types, and how does it impact yield? So for this one, we'll be making use of the average growing period that we made, a new measure. Remember I said measures don't show as your column, it only shows in this place, your visual. So let's select the scatter plot for this. I'm selecting the scatter plot because this has to do with, I'll show you. Let's go over the question again so you can understand. This has to do with different crop types. So imagine a chart or a visual showing you your crop types in different bubble forms. So that's why I'm using the scatter plot. Now the question is, in the average growing period, what is the average growing period for different crop types and how does it impact yield? So we're going to use average growing period, the measure we created. There it is, the first one. So just click on average growing period. So it has added it to the x-axis. Next off, click on the crop type. It has added that to the values. So we need to click on the yield per hectare. It has added that to the y-axis. You can see our bubbles are small. So since we're dealing with crop types, there was a column here that is called NDVI index. What this does is it shows you the growth, the healthiness of your crops. So that's what this column is. Let's view it in the table view so you can see what I'm talking about. I did a little research on this and found out that NDVI shows the health of your crop, the healthiness of your crop. So let's add that to our visual and see what happens. Selecting that, you can see the bubbles have increased. So if I hover over any of the bubbles, it gives us the type of crop. So each of these bubbles, first of all, represent the types of crops. Looking at it, this crop type is maize, and this one here is rice, this one here is wheat, and this one here is soybeans, and the last one here is cotton. So you can see the average growing period and the yield it gave you. So since you have the yield on the y-axis and the average growing period on the x-axis, you can tell that for this period, the yield was 420,000, and the number just goes like that. While for this growing period, 120 growing period, this was the yield for wheat. And just like that, you can tell a story with this visual. So that will be all about DAX. To just do a little recap, we said DAX is a formula language. Just know that DAX is for custom calculations. That's what DAX is. And then we also talked about creating new columns. Over here in our table view, we created new columns using DAX. If you go to the sidebar and click on any of the fields you have here, just click on it and it will show you the formula we used. Okay, let's go to, this is the formula in the formula bar here. So that's DAX. So the language used in creating, custom calculations is DAX. So we created new columns, we created measures, created a new measure. Measure was just the use of the keywords for calculations. Then we also talked about different functions. You have the sum, the if, the count, and so on. Lastly, we tested our DAX functions here in our visual. DAX brings an advanced analytics capability to Power BI. That's what DAX does. It lifts you up above the simpler or casual analysis into the advanced capabilities. Lastly, I just want to drop this as a little note. It's a take home something to note about. When you are working with DAX, you have to know about row context and filter context. It's not a big deal, it's just that rows, during calculation, rows works with individual rows. For example, when we are creating new columns, when we were talking about harvest date, for example, to get the values, it was working row per row, row per row. That's that is what I mean by row context. So you have to understand that anytime you are making your calculations with DAX, are you working with row context or are you working with filter context? Now, filter context, on the other hand, works with the entire data. It just picks up some, it picks up some content from the data, the entire data, and gives you what you want based on your filter. So, for example, if I click on this crop type maize here now, it's going to adjust every other thing to maize. It's going to, you can see at the top here, you just have the maize. And if we also work with crop type here, it will also select only maize. So that's filter. In this case, you are working with filter. So just understand that in every calculation or in Power BI visualization generally, you are either dealing with row context or you are dealing with filter context. You can filter in different ways, not just the way I showed. So just click outside the circle and you are back to your normal visual. You can filter through these views here, this panel here. You can select which one you want. You can see crop type is showing all, average is showing all. So you can select maybe just sub and it will visualize only sub. So that's that about row context and filter context. Okay guys, it was such a nice topic, viewing DAX. See you in the next class. Thank you.